Okay, introducing my guest for this episode. He was catching fly balls as an outfielder for the Canberra Cavalry back in 2015. From there, he went on to help Australian Baseball League in operations and development. He has taken on such roles as development officer for the Gold Coast Baseball League, operations, and then general manager for the ABL. From there, he went on being the general manager for Baseball Australia. He has literally done everything and anything related to Australian baseball. So if you're trying to find a guest pertaining to the subject of the ABL, I feel like this guy may have some experience. Currently from Louisiana, but a Gold Coast, Queensland native at heart, ladies and gentlemen, Scott Hillier. Scott, how are you doing today, my man?
Good, thanks, Eddie. I appreciate it. Thanks for getting me on, and excited to have a chat about all things Australian baseball.
Yeah. I watched baseball as a young kid, and I was only exposed to American baseball, or MLB, to say the least. And I went on, because I would see a lot of players from the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico playing, and I was like, I wonder how do they get these players. So I started getting into Lidom and Puerto Rico, and then it just snowballed into Hawaiian and all sorts of other KBO, obviously. And then recently I found myself watching Australian baseball. Like many other baseball fans during the pandemic, they were looking for some baseball content, and Australian baseball, it was exciting. And I never really hear about it anywhere else, but being exposed to it is very exciting baseball to watch. And knowing that there is actual baseball culture in areas where you don't really think you would see that is great. With that being said, what is the largest contrast that you see from the Australian Baseball League compared to other leagues, as far as culture or anything else is concerned?
Yeah, honestly, so the Australian Baseball League, it's kind of prided on the fact that come to Australia and play baseball. It's an unbelievable place to be, live. So we've kind of differentiated ourselves from a lot of the other winter leagues throughout. Like you said, there's leagues in Dominican, Mexico, Puerto Rico, Venezuela, all these places, and predominantly Spanish-speaking places. Some may not be as safe as others, and I think that's where the Australian Baseball League is probably vastly different to a lot of other winter leagues that are around. We're an English-speaking country. We're predominantly very safe to be in and live. And, it's a shortened season too. It's only 3 months, and guys come in and they kind of get their work in and they get out. And they have an unbelievable time while they're doing it, traveling around to, literally the entire country. So guys, they tend to have that Australian way of life rub off on them as well. And you'll have them come over and they might be a little uptight. They're so used to all the pressure on themselves. A lot of these big prospects, especially, they come out from America, and then they come to Australia and you've got a guy who's literally been on the work site all day, laying bricks or building houses or something. And then he's rocking up to the ball field and he's still in his work boots. And they're like, how does this guy get it done? How does he play in a professional baseball league? And I think that kind of rubs off on these guys. And that's probably the biggest difference that no one really recognizes, that these Australian guys have full-time jobs, and they're literally coming from the job site to the ballpark. And there's a New Zealand native. He's now played for the Australian team as well, but his name's Boss Maldaroa. And years ago we had the ABL All-Star game, and this was my first experience working with the ABL. And we booked him all his travel, and he had to work for the day. And he gets on his flight, flies down to Melbourne, and he's coming to the All-Star game. And he's like, the last group of BP is about to get taken. And he's like, no time to get changed, nothing. And he's walked out there, he's got a high-vis shirt on, still got his hard hat on. He's got his work boots on. And he's out there taking batting practice in his full work uniform.
Well, a helmet is a helmet, right?
Exactly. And I mean, these are just things that I guess rub off on international players, and they see it. It's just a little bit different, and it's kind of that ballpark culture that you're not going to get anywhere else. You're going to, like I said, guys are literally working 40-hour weeks and then going to go play in a professional baseball league. And I think that that way of playing baseball really transpires and rubs off on different people in different ways.
Oh, that's interesting. That is a very stark difference. I mean, I don't think anybody is going to Walmart and then going to work and then taking batting practice in their uniform with name tags on.
Yeah.
But with that being said, when I was watching it, it was very easy to follow. The structure is a little bit different. There's less teams, obviously, but the content makes up for that. Do you see like a certain type do you see more Spanish speaking baseball players or English speaking baseball players come to the league more? What kind of imports or imports do you get from other countries?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, over the time of the ABL, the directions changed a little bit. So originally it was Major League Baseball owned, and that really drove, it was honestly, it was a winter league for MLB minor leaguers to come over and basically play their off season. If they missed at bats, if they missed innings, if they just wanted to get a better look at someone, kind of fast track them, they would send them out. And every team pretty much had to deal with a major league club, and major league clubs paying to send these guys out to Australia for 3 months and get better effectively. So a lot of minor league heavy imports was early on, mixed with those American indie ball guys, because that was really all anyone knew. And it's like, where do we go for baseball? Go to America, go to the hotbed of it, and that's where they came from. But as it's kind of transpired, a lot of the strategic direction of the ABL, the MLB dropped off. They're no longer owned. It's owned by Baseball Australia now. And we've then gone into private ownership of teams as well instead of essential ownership. And that's really seen a different direction from different teams. So we got, GMs of like the Perth Heat, for instance, who still have a great relationship with the Tampa Bay Rays. So every year they get 8 to 10 guys who come out from Tampa Bay, and they've been really lucky, and they've got these amazing prospects. Like they've got, a couple of guys that have come out throwing like 100, which no one in Australia sees very often. So, you get that. And then Adelaide Giants now, they've got a great relationship with the Phillies, and they're getting some top line prospects that are coming out as well. Whereas you kind of flip it and you go to, someone like the Brisbane Bandits, who are heavily reliant on kind of those unique, they've got a better Australian contingency, so they're not as reliant on imports. So they're going to go down the path of, well, who can we get? So they got, some top line level like Asian imports from the KBO, from the NPB, and those are really driving the viewership, because all these Asian countries love watching it. They just they're not going to watch it if there's no one that they know is playing. Like last year, they had a former Nippon Ham Fighters pitcher playing for them, and the year before that, they had this guy Aki, who is like royalty in the CPBL, and everyone tunes in, everyone local comes and watches. So that's kind of the direction that it's going. But with that as well, the level of competition is increasing. So the level of imports is going up. These Japanese teams and these Korean teams and Taiwanese teams, they're not sending out guys who aren't any good. Like Shota Imanaga came out for the Canberra Cavalry years ago, and the guy went 6-0 and gave up 1 run, like in his 6 starts. Like, it was unbelievable. And then went back to Japan, pitched in the NPB, and absolutely dominated. So it's like, there's really good players and prospects that are coming out. Melbourne, again, good example of a team that went down the path of an indie ball route, but they're getting guys like Delman Young is a staple in their lineup now.
I did just see him playing. It was fun to see him, because I did follow him in his MLB days, and seeing him still play it's amazing.
I mean, he's dominating, right? Like, he's hitting like 400 for most of the year. And then at the end of the year, he ends up like he's DHing, and then he ends up closing a game for them. Like, he's pitching. He's on the mound throwing like 90, and everyone's like, Delman Young's pitching now. So,
well, don't you have experience being a two-way player? Were you like a...
Not in the ABL. I never got there. I had a few times warming up in the bullpen, but I try to avoid that as much as I can. But yeah, there's times when, you're either getting smashed or you're winning by a lot. You need to bring someone in. But that's it though. And I mean, the level of guys that are playing or have played in the ABL now it's growing, it's increasing, and it's just generating more and more interest. Like, I mean, big names like Ronald Acuna Jr., he played, Kevin Kiermaier, Reese Hoskins, Didi Gregorius was in like one of the first years of the ABL, and now he's he's playing shortstop in the big leagues. And it's just, the level just continues to get more and more, and whilst it's changed direction a little bit to, become a bit more Asian focused with the imports, there's still these high level minor league guys or former big leaguers that are coming out and wanting to play, either to just extend their careers or find a new way back to the major leagues or to another league somewhere in the world.
Yeah, and you easily see that in one or two games watching them. You see all that, without any of the words you say. You just see all this kind of like, that's the thing about baseball. You see so much of everything and culture and people and just like it is one. I think it's one of the most diverse sports in the world, and in Australia to get that kind of like that kind of hotbed of mixture of cultures within Australia is something very interesting to watch grow. Do you see Australian baseball growing into more than what it is, or is it comfortable where it's at right now within the league? Yeah.
I mean, the direction, again, like I said, it's kind of shifting a bit more of an Asian focus. And I mean, COVID was, one of the most challenging things about last year and running the league was like, how do we get a season going? We've got just before that, we expanded to, Auckland came in from New Zealand, so they had a team, and then a Korean-owned team came and based themselves in Geelong, in Melbourne there, and that was, that expansion was great, and it brought a whole new viewership. New Zealand came in, Korea had like a sole focused team of like all Koreans, so they were tuned in, and the viewership kind of went up and up and up, and that really drove that Asian direction and that Asian modeling. But COVID saw, us trial some new things. We went for like hub options, so we played, typically in the ABL, for people that don't know, the games are Thursday to Sunday or Friday to Sunday. They play a 4-game series, where last year we trialed playing every day of the week, and we played 2 games a day with 4 teams in one location, and that was playing like a 10 a.m. game so we could stream it back into the US so that, the US people could tune in on a regional network. And then you play a night game or an afternoon game for the local market as well. And that brought about some different numbers, different, viewership, and a lot of different interest in getting new fans involved, like yourself, who would have seen the game, probably, one of the first times we've been able to see it more often. And then now it's like, what else can we do? How can we, how can the game continue to evolve? How can it change? Can we be pioneers of different things? And, one of those, like, heaps of topics in Major League Baseball right now are, hot topics like 7 innings, moving the mound back, all these different things, shortening the field, like, different balls. It's like, and the ABL is kind of continually looking at ways to do things a little bit differently, whether it's through schedule structure or whether it's through actual rule implementations. So a good example of that is that we had a women's baseball showcase, which is kind of a lead into the women's ABL, which is looking at, generating and coming up. And part of that showcase, they played like, they were called like power plays, for instance. And, you could pick as a manager, whatever inning you wanted to start, you could start with runners on first and second. So it kind of creates a spark, and, it's received with good and bad feedback, but it's different. And Australia is a market where baseball isn't, it's not the majority sport. So how do we get Australian fans interested? Try things that are different, try things that are exciting. People want to see home runs. People want to see runs scored. No one understands what, like, you can watch a pitching duel, it's 1-0. Like, there's been 2 hits in the game, but no one really knows what's going on. They're just like, oh, everyone's getting struck out. This is like, the guy throws hard. Wow. But when they see a ball go over the fence, it's like, oh, that's a home run. It doesn't matter how big the fence is. They see the ball going over, they're like, they don't know it's 300 or 340 or whatever it is. And it's just about finding ways to create more excitement. And I think that's going to be the continual direction of the ABL. It's going to be, how can we just create more excitement? How can we give hitters the advantage, to be honest, because it's more exciting to watch as someone who probably doesn't know a lot about the game, which is the majority of Australian baseball fans.
I also think that you should implement construction hats as the
a little Tim Scott too to keep them.
I think that would drive fans. With that being said, you're talking about fans and enjoying the game. One random thing I always ask is, what about the food when you go to an Australian baseball game? I imagine how different it would be from baseball games in America.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Like, it depends where you go, and different ballparks have different experiences. So, like the Korean team I was talking about, they had a lot of like Korean barbecue getting generated, as like that area. But then they also had just the general like I'm not sure what it is in America, like a canteen, like the concession stand where you just go and get like a hot dog or a burger or just something normal. So it was like a good contrast in the one ballpark. And then you go to different places, and honestly, people are trying to recreate that American ballpark experience a little bit. So you're still going to see hot dogs, you're still going to see corn dogs and all that. But then you go somewhere else, and they might have like a corporate area where you're literally just going to have a sausage sizzle, and you're going to be having sausage and bread with some onions slapped on it.
Oh
And
yes.
put a little bit of sauce and grab a beer, and you're good to go. Like, it's not vastly different, but people are experimenting. They're trying different things, and you're going to find a few little differences. And you might not get the corn dog that tastes the exact same, but there's definitely going to be hot dogs, and th're going to be real sausages. That's going to be the big difference. They're not going to be these like plastic Walmart bought sausages. It's going to be on a piece of white bread, and it's going to have some onions on there. It's going to be the best thing you'll ever eat.
I'm going to book a flight right now. I'm going to check it. Yeah. So better food, I guess, better hot dogs.
Probably a little different, but you're always going to find something a little different. Australia's a very multicultural place in general, with a big Asian influence as well. So you're going to see a lot of those kind of foods, and a lot of like a bit of odd like food trucks that'll be involved. And you're not going to be short of a choice. It's not your typical ballpark food. You're going to be able to go get some ramen, or you can get a hot dog. Like,
oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. With when I was hearing the games in Australia, how do you feel about the vernacular? Is it easy to digest? Like are there different baseball terminologies you think that non-Australians have to get used to, or is it the same?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference is probably just the distances. So I mean, consistently it's referenced in miles per hour and feet, right? Australia doesn't use that system where we're kilometers and meters. But when you're talking to people in in baseball terms and the commentary, it's always in feet, it's always in miles per hour, and that's just never changed. So they try and keep that consistent. Which is different again from the Asian market. Like if you watch an NPB game, you're going to see 150 kilometers flash up, and I guarantee you, no American knows what 150 kilometers is. And likewise, like I don't know how to compare that back to miles either. And for me, it's confusing too. I want to see miles per hour because that's how I know baseball. But if you're an Australian fan and you see miles per hour, you're probably like, oh, I don't know, that just sounds fast. Like 90 sounds fast, 100 sounds fast. Like they all sound quick. And it's kind of those things. But in terms of, I guess, other terminology, you're going to find it depends if a team's hired their commentary from. But the New Zealand Auckland Tuatara team, they had a local like New Zealand commentator on, and a lot of the terminology he was using was like very cricket.
I was gonna yeah.
So like he's like, it's just some of the slang terms that get brought out are a little different, and I feel the like terminology is very cricket heavy, and if you're a baseball person and watching it, you'd be like, oh, well, that makes no sense. But
that's what I was wondering, because I was watching some games and I heard some terminology there that I didn't hear, but I actually enjoyed that part. I want the words and everything to feel so foreign to me. So, it's just like opening a new world of baseball. I think that's a great thing, using.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, we've got a guy who he does a lot of the commentary for the ABL, or has been, when it comes to like the playoffs or the All-Star games and all that. And he's an American guy from Arkansas originally, but he moved out to Australia in like 2012 with an internship with the ABL, and he hasn't left. So he must enjoy it himself. But he does a lot of the commentary, and over the time he's like, he knows the American terms and he knows it, but he's kind of adopted some of his own like Australian baseball, euphemisms in there as well. And it's good to hear. And it kind of creates that point of difference where you're going to hear Australian slang. And I think, like you said, it's different, and it makes it authentic as well. People know they're not just watching another American baseball game. You're watching a game that's being played literally on the other side of the world.
Yeah. With fans and fans interactions, in I'm from New York, Yankee fan. We boo or they boo when things are not going well. You hear it, like, or the players hear it very clearly, that the fans are not happy. And then, like in Lidom in the Puerto Rican League in Mexico,
Mhm.
you hear loud banging and drums. You hear this music playing by the fans. What can we expect from fans in Australia?
Yeah, again, I mean, it does vary from the ballpark to ballpark. So a lot of the ballparks in Australia are obviously a lot smaller. They're going to be a lot more like your minor league or your indie ball kind of ballparks, where these ones are only fitting like 3 to 5,000 fans max. And average attendance is around like 1,500 to 2,000. So it's a lot smaller in style. But in saying that, they're also a lot more open. So you're going to see a lot of like grassy spots. You're going to see a lot of area where you might bring your own seating and all that, and that brings about like a family atmosphere. So
Yeah.
you're probably more so going to see a lot of people that are literally like sitting engaged in the game a bit more and eating food, and they're exciting. They're probably not going to boo, or I think that the culture's a little bit different. So there's not going to be a lot of booing, but there's going to be a lot more cheering when things go well. But in saying that, you could be down 10 runs and your team will hit a home run and they'll still be cheering like, they
Oh,
won
that's
the
awesome. That's
they
awesome to
still get
hear.
excited by it, which is great. But then one of the greatest, I love this kind of stuff, but one of the greatest parts in the Brisbane ballpark is there's this group called the Outlaws, and they've came from like a soccer background, which, if you've watched any kind of European football, soccer, all that stuff, they sing, they dance, they come up with their own songs, and literally every single person that comes to the plate to hit, they've got a song for them. Like they've personalized
Ah,
it and they'll
yes.
sing it. And, it obviously lifts the home team up, but the away team, it's very tasteful, don't get me wrong, but they're definitely trying to put you down and make fun of something you've done, or, something that's happened to you. Or, it could be something as simple as you wear glasses and, they're going to make a song about you've got glasses and you struggle to see, or, and it's all very tasteful and a bit of sarcasm, which is great. And that provides, just that point of difference for the Brisbane ballpark, which, it's very condensed, very small, so it gets very loud as well. And when these guys, especially on a doubleheader day when they've had a few beers, the voices tend to go up and they start singing a little extra loud. And you're going to find a lot of that as well. So a lot of kids running around, a lot of kids, playing games, having fun, a lot of cheering. Even when you're down, they're still going to cheer, and some songs that'll come out and they'll make you think. They'll wonder where that creativity came from.
How is the bat flipping culture in Australia?
Yeah, I mean, again, probably Asian influence. Honestly, it's getting, you see those guys in the KBO and they hit singles and
Yeah.
they're like throwing their bat down the third baseline, and you're going to get a lot of that. And again, it's, you get these influences that come out and they bring their own flair. They feel like they can be more relaxed and play more like themselves. And Ronald Acuna was a great example of that. He came out and like, this is a guy who spoke no English when he came to Australia. I don't know how much English he speaks now, but in a culture where no one else speaks Spanish, he still played with that flair and that excitement. And he was easily one of the most exciting players to watch. He's hitting home runs, he's bat flipping, he's playing with emotion, he's like pounding his chest, and you're going to get a lot of that. And that's going to rub off on the Australian players as well. Whilst it's a very humble and modest culture that Australians are, and, they don't like to show off too much, they do get very passionate about their sport. So, game one, game two, you may not see it, but you better believe it when you get down the stretch and you get in, the playoffs, you're going to see these guys start to get real invested and real emotional. And, they're going to be bat flipping, they're going to be pounding their chest, they're going to be taking their time running around the bases, especially when, one of the fields has like a soccer stadium that's behind it. And you'll see these guys like hit a ball and it comes off the soccer stadium and it's massive. And they sit there and they'll watch it the entire way and enjoy every bit of it, which is great to see. It's exciting. I think everyone wants to see that now. And, you don't want to see these robots out there. You want to see guys that love it and want to be there and show their emotion. And you'll definitely get that.
Oh, well, that's awesome. I'll definitely be tuning in some more Australian baseball, trying to hear more cricket terminology. I may learn more about cricket from watching
Well,
baseball.
One of the kind of interesting things, I think, how baseball's shifted in Australia is to like the Chappell brothers, they call. They're like Australian cricket royalty from like, I mean, I'm going to get ridiculed by every Australian for not knowing the era they were involved in, but earlier, like 50s, 60s, that kind of era. And in their off seasons, they played baseball because, it helped them with hand-eye coordination, hitting and throwing and all this stuff. And you're getting that kind of rub off into the cricket culture as well. And, we're finding in Australia that cricket is having an influence now from baseball. They're actually hiring a lot of people, like a lot of baseball hitting coaches are going into cricket now and teaching them how to swing, and hit for more power because it's such a technical game, how to throw better, how to field better. And a lot of those fundamentals are rubbing off on the cricket. So you might see it kind of go back and forth now, baseball rubbing off on cricket and the cricket terminology rubbing off on baseball as well.
That's interesting. You were talking about, the KBO and, the Japan League and all that, and how their fans are very dedicated to their individual players. Do you see that in the Australian baseball culture, with the Ryan Rowland Smith or anyone that comes into the MLB? Like, do you see the Australian people like back them and view the big games that they're in?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like Liam Hendricks, obviously, he's probably the most recent big signing for Australia. And, when he signed and it got into the Australian media, that was like the most picked up Australian media piece that baseball's kind of had for a long time. And that was great to see. And, they may be attracted to the things like the money is huge and all that, but you'll never go anywhere, I think, internationally where, like, if I was going to Chicago and I went to the White Sox and wanted to watch Liam Hendricks pitch, like, you better believe I'm going to try and call out to him and be like, hey, I'm Australian, like, come meet me. Like, I've never met him personally, but I would go find him and say, I'm Australian. And you'll find people connect with each other that way just because they're from the same place and you don't see, people that often. But you definitely get it. They love to follow along. The baseball culture loves to follow along. And, people will always switch on a game to watch an Australian play. Like, if they had a choice between, watching the White Sox or watching the Cubs, for instance, they're going to watch the White Sox because Liam Hendricks might come in the game and he might be pitching.
There you go. Well, that is amazing to hear. Again, I can't wait to watch more Australian baseball and, see what I learned from them. Those are the questions I have for you today, Scott, and I do appreciate your time. Where could we follow more about Australian baseball? Is it just a YouTube channel, or where can we learn more about it?
Yeah, so pretty much everything now redirects through, they're going to love me for saying this, by the way, for baseball.com.au. If you go to that, you'll find links to everything kind of baseball in Australia. You'll find, local Little League, all that, and then you'll find the ABL links through that as well. And you can search for the same thing on YouTube. They also have a podcast, which has a few little cool, nuances and some different people that have been on talking about it as well. So anything baseball.com.au and you'll find ABL or Baseball in Australia.
That's amazing. And where's your baseball journey taking you now?
Texas. So going to be running some youth baseball over here and baseball and softball. And it's exciting to see if I can bring a little bit of the Australian terms over to the South.
There you go. Well, again, I appreciate your time here on Kind of New to Baseball. Thank you so much, Scott.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. Have a good day.